How's it going, everyone? Blueknight here, and welcome back to another Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart video. So it's been about 2 weeks since the game was released, and as promised, content pertaining to Rift Apart is resuming on the channel. But considering some of you guys were not fortunate enough to get your hands on a PS5 to actually play the game, like myself, who had to spoil the game's story for myself just to make this video, so I'm going to be marking this video as well as the next few videos as spoilers just in case. With that said, I've given you guys a fair warning before we jump into today's topic, which happens to focus on the game's ending and what we can expect for the sequel. So without further ado, let's dive in. Emperor Nefarious is defeated in Ratchet's dimension with the help of our Nefarious sending him to his doom on planet Ardolus. He unfortunately gets crushed while celebrating the fact that this dimension is back down to just one Nefarious trying to take over. But don't worry, he's just stuck, so I'm sure we're going to see him again sometime soon. Ratchet & Clank then used the Dimensionator to repair all the damage caused to the universe when Ratchet blasted the device back at the start of the game, with both versions of each character coming together to celebrate their victory. We then cut over to Rivet apologizing to Kit for her behavior earlier on in the game, and considers Kit her friend, despite being the reason Rivet lost her arm in the first place, which is kind of an interesting parallel to the friction Ratchet & Clank had in the original game, albeit a bit darker, but that's honestly really appreciated. But now the two have essentially become their dimension's version of our duo, and are about to head back home until Ratchet asks them if they want to make a pit stop on the way.
How would you two feel about making a pit stop on the way?
Where are we headed?
I think you know.
I think you know is Ratchet's response to Rivet's question, and from what I could gather from the rest of the game's story, I have a feeling this is because Ratchet's desire to find the Lombaxes resurfaces. Just not at first when Clank shows him the repaired and modified Dimensionator, but rather much later on in the game when he meets Kit on planet Savali while trying to reach the interdimensional archives to figure out how to make another Dimensionator. Upon arrival, Ratchet instantly recognizes the Lombax writing in the room, but I unfortunately could not get a proper translation out of any of the lines of text present here, just some random letters strung together that don't really mean anything. However, one of the game's collectibles, known as Lorbs, does actually translate to For Honor, For Friendship. These Lorbs act as the game's audio log type of collectible, where we hear a Lombax by the name of Mags chronicling his efforts to map every dimension in existence, a plan that was thought of by none other than Caden, who was the keeper of the Dimensionator and Ratchet's dad, before Tachyon drove the Lombaxes to flee from their home on planet Fastoon in Ratchet's dimension to another dimension. But before the Lombaxes fled, Mags left a copy of the dimensional map he used for all of his mapping in the archives on planet Savali in Rivet's dimension, marking the exact dimension where all the Lombaxes went, in the event anyone was left behind, and if they happened to have a Dimensionator, they could easily go there, or really anywhere else in the universe, by simply installing the map into the device. So anyways, once Ratchet arrives at the archives and realizes the Lombaxes built this, his interest in finding them resurfaces, despite already being aware of Rivet, who's also very interested in finding the Lombaxes, but that's if they can even build another Dimensionator first. Long story short, they actually managed to do just that, and now that Ratchet has the dimensional map and a currently functional Dimensionator, they can finally head to the exact dimension where the vast majority of Lombaxes have been residing in for the next game, which is what I believe Ratchet was implying when he said, "I think you know." And it's going to be very exciting when that game eventually releases, probably less than 3 years from now, because this is a moment that a lot of fans, including myself, have been waiting years to see. But at the same time, I honestly feel like the circumstance will also be a sad one, because Clank may return to the Great Clock once that happens, which is why Clank has stuck with Ratchet for so long after a crack in time, because he's never found the Lombaxes, with the exception of Rivet, who can't really stay in Ratchet's dimension because she's got her own to tend to. But it still seems like like our duo will visit them quite a bit, just going by the credits, which basically serves as an epilogue of sorts for certain characters. While not everything present here is canon, some of what's here was clearly done just for fun and nothing more. But I do believe there are some things here that are canon and will carry over into the next game, like Clank's arm being repaired for instance. It's not the original arm, but it does resemble Rivet's robotic arm. I mean, this one was apparently going to happen because, come on, we can't have Clank wandering around with just one arm all the time. And some of the characters that didn't get to appear in the main game actually did make their way into the game's credits, like Talon showing up when Ratchet shows her the dimensional map. This I feel will play a part in the next game because Talon, for all those years, believes that her dad, Max Apogee, is still alive somewhere, and if she was aware of the news that he was seen escaping Emperor Tachyon with Angela Cross, and that his ship was found on autopilot coming from planet Jacindu, which is where he relocated the original Dimensionator to after the robot pirates found the Lombax artifact leading to the device. This could be her chance to find out where exactly he disappeared to, and finally close the case of whatever happened to Angela, you know, the female Lombax that had no tail.
Last time I broke out of this place was with Angela. Haven't seen her in a long time.
And fun fact, when Mags was describing another dimension, which was obviously Sly Cooper's, he described Sly, or perhaps his dad, Connor Cooper, just looking at the timeline that I'll be discussing in the next video, as looking like a Lombax, but with smaller ears, a mask, and a cane. Strangely, nothing was mentioned about his tail, which some of us, when we first seen Rivet back when Rift Apart was announced, immediately compared her tail to that of Sly Cooper's. And seeing as Mags clearly knows what a Lombax looks like, at least for ones from Ratchet's dimension, I think he would know whether or not female Lombaxes from Ratchet's dimension had tails like Rivet's. So why else would he compare Sly or Connor to a Lombax? That is a very good question. But regardless of whatever theory is out there, it's possible Angela had one and simply lost it in some sort of accident. Who really knows? Next up, we got Dr. Nefarious leaving the office of Emperor Nefarious and returning to Lawrence. Yep, for everyone who was wondering where Lawrence was all this time, turns out that Nefarious actually gave Lawrence a paid paternity leave, which is something we found out about right at the start of the game, and I just thought that was super funny when I first heard that, because like a lot of humor in this game, that was truly unexpected, and it's really nice to know that Lawrence hasn't been forgotten. And the last character we have is the plumber.
See you in the next reboot.
I mean, we technically did see him, just not directly in-game like we're used to, with him giving us these cryptic hints or clues that don't really amount to anything until the right time in the future saga, or in the case of the original series and the reboot, hinting at future installments. But his appearance here in the credits, alongside Gary, who takes care of and studies the interdimensional archives, yeah, he's actually the plumber's son. I know, I was not expecting to find that out. I'm not entirely sure how that's really possible, given that both characters are a dimension apart, but then again, he does seem like he can go pretty much anywhere he wants to, including, but not limited to, Clank's subconscious. So I wouldn't be too surprised if he could travel between dimensions, on top of seemingly knowing the future.
So what is in that book of yours?
The most up-to-date collection of knowledge in the universe, as cataloged by my father.
And who is that?
I believe you know him as the plumber.
He is your father? What is he doing now?
Taking his first vacation ever. So he left me in charge, and I'm trying my best, but it's a lot to live up to even when the universe isn't in danger.
Wait, aren't you gonna give us some cryptic advice we can use to defeat Nevo?
Oh, sorry, friend. That kind of advice, I'm afraid I don't have. Good luck.
Gary, I could use an exit!
But anyways guys, that's going to do it for this video going over Rift Apart's ending and what we could possibly expect from the sequel, when that eventually happens. So as always, if you guys have any thoughts or your own theories concerning what we might see happen in the next Ratchet & Clank game, be sure to leave everything down in the comment section below, and also be sure to hit that subscribe button and the bell for more Ratchet & Clank content coming your way real soon. And once again, thank you all so much for watching and the constant support. I've been Blueknight, and I'll see you guys back here next time.
What?